Hi, fourth grade. No, I'm sorry, fifth graders. It is summer vacation. I'm missing you very much. I hope you're having a wonderful time. And I thought we should get down to what I promised I would do for you and read these chapters and record the rest of Winn, Dixie so that you can hear the end of this story. So let me give you a brief reminder of where we left off. Before school got out, we finished up to chapter 16, and you recall that Opal was visiting with Miss Franny Block, who was the librarian of that tiny library in her new town. And that day, the last day that we read this chapter, she was in the library, and pinched-faced Amanda Wilkinson came in, and they both listened to Miss Franny Block tell a story about her family and how her family came to settle in that area in Florida. And you remember that they were talking about the Civil War. That was the time setting of her great-great-grandfather. Let me see if I'm remembering that correctly. Her Artley W. Block. That's right. So, that's where we left off. It was a very sad story. You recall he went to war and he came back and none of his family was surviving. And Opal was surprised that her and Amanda could have a similar feeling about that story. She was surprised that her and Amanda both agreed that this story they heard was sad. Chapter 17. Well, Litmus came home from the war, said Miss Franny, as she went on with her story, and found himself alone. And he sat down on what used to be the front step of his house, and he cried and cried. He cried just like a baby. He missed his mama, and he missed his daddy, and he missed his sisters, and he missed the boy he used to be. When he finally finished crying, he had the strangest sensation. He felt like he wanted something sweet. He wanted a piece of candy. He hadn't had a piece of candy in years. And it was right then that he made a decision. Yes, ma'am, Litmus W. Block figured the world was a sorry affair, and that it had enough ugly things in it, and what he was going to do was concentrate on putting something sweet in it. He got up and started walking. He walked all the way to Florida. And the whole time he was walking, he was planning. Planning what? I asked. Why, planning the candy factory. Did he build it? I asked. Course he did. It's still standing out on Fairville Road. That old building? Said Amanda. That big spooky one? It's not spooky, said Miss Franny. It was the birthplace of the family fortune. It was there that my great-grandfather manufactured the Litmus lozenge, a candy that was famous the world over. I've never heard of it, said Amanda. Me neither, I said. Well, said Miss Franny, they aren't made any more. The world, it seems, lost its appetite for Litmus lozenges. But I still happen to have a few. She opened the top drawer of her desk. It was full of candy. She opened the drawer below that. It was full of candy, too. Miss Franny Block's whole desk was full of candy. Would you care for a Litmus lozenge? She asked Amanda and me. Yes, please, said Amanda. Sure, I said. Can Winn-Dixie have one, too? I have never known a dog that cared for hard candy, said Miss Franny, but he is welcome to try one. Miss Franny gave Amanda one Litmus lozenge and me 2. I unwrapped one and held it out to Winn-Dixie. He sat up and sniffed it and wagged his tail and took the candy from between my fingers real gentle. He tried to chew on it, and when that didn't work, he just swallowed the whole thing in one big gulp. Then he wagged his tail at me and lay back down. I ate my litmus lozenge slow. It tasted good. It tasted like root beer and strawberry and something else I didn't have a name for, something that made me feel kind of sad. I looked over at Amanda. She was sucking on her candy and thinking hard. Do you like it? Miss Franny asked me. Yes, ma'am, I told her. What about you, Amanda? Do you like the litmus lozenge? Yes, ma'am, she said. But it makes me think of things I feel sad about. I wondered what in the world Amanda Wilkinson had to be sad about. She wasn't new in town. She had a mama and a daddy. I hadn't seen her with them in church. I had seen her with them in church. There's a secret ingredient in there, Miss Franny said. I know it, I told her. I can taste it. What is it? Sorrow, Miss Franny said. Not everybody can taste it. Children especially seem to have a hard time knowing it's there. I taste it, I said. Me too, said Amanda. Well then, Miss Franny said, you probably both had your share of sadness. I had to move away from Whately and leave all my friends, I said. That is one sadness I've had. And Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry are always picking on me. That's another sadness. And the biggest one, my biggest sadness, is that my mama left me when I was still small. And I can hardly remember her. I keep hoping I'll get to meet her and tell her some stories. It makes me miss Carson, said Amanda. She sounded like she was going to cry. I have to go. And she got up and almost ran out of the Herman W. Block Memorial Library. Who's Carson? I asked Miss Franny. She shook her head. Sorrow, she said. It is a sorrow-filled world. But how do you put that in a piece of candy? I asked her. How do you get that taste in there? That's the secret, she said. Why, that's why Litmus made a fortune. He manufactured a piece of candy that tasted sweet and sad at the same time. Can I have a piece to take to my friend Gloria Dump? And another one to take to Otis down at Gertrude's Pets? And another one for the preacher? And one for Sweetie Pie, too? You may have as many as you want, said Miss Franny. So I stuffed my pockets full of litmus lozenges, and I thanked Miss Franny for her story, and I checked out Gone with the Wind, which was a very big book. Time out. Do you remember why she was going to check out Gone with the Wind? Are you remembering she was going to read it to her friend, Miss Gloria Dump? And why was she going to read her such a long book? Because she did not have very good eyesight. Very good. Time in. I told Winn Dixie to get up. The two of us left and went over to Gloria Dump's. I rode right past the Dewberry's house. Dunlap and Stevie were playing football in the front yard, and I was just getting ready to stick my tongue out at them. But then I thought about what Miss Franny said about war being so horrible. And I thought about what Gloria Dump said about not judging them too hard. And so I just waved instead. They stood and stared at me. But when I was almost all the way past, I saw Dunlap put his hand up in the air and wave back. Hey, he hollered. Hey, Opal. I waved harder, and I thought about Amanda Wilkinson and how it was neat that she liked a good story the same that I did. And I wondered again, who was Carson?